Okay, back to the Scarecrow. The Scarecrow dropping stuff. And where were we? So the Scarecrow is now moving. It's going to move to there. Oh, it doesn't stop when it gets to the edge. We were almost there. I did not save this, right? So if it goes greater than 7.75, it makes sure it wants to move in the opposite direction, which means negative, right? So we take the absolute value of speed and we negate it, which means that in the other case where we went too far negative, that means we want to make sure that our speed is positive, right? So in this case, we're just using the x component of this speed. We are scaling it by delta time. There's lots of other ways. You could have set this as a vector and then scaled the vector and then flipped the whole vector, things like that. So there's a lot of different variations on this that we could have done. This one just is pretty straightforward for purposes today. All right, so now our one bag drops. Our Scarecrow is going to bounce back and forth. Okay. We could turn up his speed a little bit. We could get 4. Right. The thing I like to tackle next is this the random motion of the Scarecrow. Right. That's a requirement. So void change direction randomly. And this, so what's going to happen is say speed times equals -1. That's it changing direction, right? But the random element, how do I do the random element of it? Well, I do that by setting up that this is going to be invoked at some seemingly random interval, right? So I use invoke, not invoke repeating, and I have to notice it is a string method name, right? Make sure I get this right. And I'm going to call it at some random interval. So I'm going to use the random, and then I'm going to use random range. So it's going to change direction in every 1.5 to 3 seconds. Okay. Oh, random range, sorry. Either one would work, but random, they deprecated that. They got rid of it. So to get it to work the first time, I'm going to go up in the start and say change direction randomly. So the first time is not really random, but it's going to change direction once and then move. All right. There. Okay, so we have some random motion built in. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to say, this is the thing, this is the guy who's going to randomly drop the bags, right? So similar to our change direction randomly, we're going to need another function that is going to instantiate dropped items randomly. Void drop, we're going to call them, drop items. Or drop item. It's not dropping multiple items, just dropping an item. What does it mean to drop an item? It means you better instantiate an item. And what are you going to instantiate? Drop prefab. Okay. And we're going to instantiate it at the position transform dot position with quaternion dot identity, right? That means instantiate it right here where we are now, my position, and unit rotation. Okay, we need to say, okay, drop prefab. We need to have that So we're going to have public game object drop prefab. Right? Prefab. No, prefab. All right. Now, we want the bag to really be a prefab now. So apple tree prefabs, we're going to grab the gunny bag and put that in here, which is going to turn it into a prefab, and then we're going to delete this one from the scene. Right? Now we need to tell our Scarecrow about that drop bag. Right? He's not going to drop any because we didn't kick off the process. So similarly, we could drop them randomly, but we want them to be much more often than that. So somewhere between 0.5 and 1. And we need to kick that off. So up here, this one we are going to use invoke there. Why? And we're going to, I don't know why. Drop item. Why are we going to use invoke in this case and not the other? Well, we don't want it to drop items immediately. So we're going to wait 1 second. And then it's going to call drop item and keep going. Right? So that's how we're going to wait for a second here. Right? And if all goes well, we wind up with some dropped items. If they hit the basket, that's good. If not, they live forever and keep falling. So let's go back to our bag, now, which is now a prefab over here. And we need to modify bag behavior to say, all right, we have to get rid of, now we need to keep track of these bags. Right? One of the requirements was to make sure that you are using lists, that you do know how to use lists. So I recommend that you do this. This is a good way to, this is good use of lists. So we're going to use static because we want all of our bags to know about one another. At least we want this behavior to be a common thing. So static, we'll even make it public if we want to refer to this list. We're going to say it's a list of game objects called bag list. Okay, we're going to start it off, new list of game objects. There. All right, so now we have created this bag list and started it. So what we want to do is, I like this way of doing it. So I used on enable. And on enable, I want to say bag list dot add, so that I will automatically add my game object right here that I am. I'm going to automatically add it to the list, and I'm going to have a matching on disable, and that will be remove. Right. So whenever a game object, whenever a bag is created or destroyed, it is going to add or remove itself from the list. Okay. That's going to be invisible at this point because there's no reason for them to get removed. There is no remove kind of thing here, unless they collide, in which case they're destroyed and they are going to wind up being removed. So, all right, whatever. Not really see that. So let's do something useful. We're going to say, okay, if transform, they're going to do the if it falls off the bottom of the screen. Transform.position.y is less than -5. All right. This is going to be the what happens? Destroy all dropped items. How's that for a name? Destroy all dropped items. We don't have that function yet. Void. Destroyed. There it is. That's the function. What is it going to do? Now, this is we want to say, okay, go through that list and destroy everything on the list. Okay. Now, the tricky part is if you destroy something, it is also going to go to remove it from the list. And that's technically modifying the list while we're going through it. So you have to be careful of that. In order to manipulate the list, we're going to duplicate the list. Right? We're going to create a temporary copy of this list. Right? Like this. So it's going to be a locally allocated version here. And this one's going to be called temp list. Right? And we're going to initialize it with bag list. So we're going to create a temporary list that's the same type of list, and we're going to start off with bag list there. So now we could say for each game object temp in. Now here's where it gets. We don't want to change the temp list. This is the one we're going to keep track of, because now what we're going to do is we're going to destroy the ones in the master list. So in bag list, right? We're going to say destroy temp, not temp, temp. Okay. So each one is going to remove itself from that list. Now this other list here, this is just a local one, so we don't have to really even get rid of it, because it's going to automatically go out of scope the moment destroy all dropped items goes away. Right? So this is going to take care of it. It's going to say, all right, for every one of those, it should take them out. Right? Let's see if that worked. We're back to our game. Nobody's asked any questions in the meantime, so I'm going to assume it's making perfect sense. And it crashed. Why? Collection was modified. Enumeration operation may not execute. What did I do? Oh, destroy temp in bag list. Oh, duh. Did it the wrong way. Use the temp list, which removes them from the bag list. Right? This should be referring to temp list, because I'm not modifying temp list here. Right? Try that again. Okay. Now you can see they're doing the right thing. If this crosses a line, boom, they all disappear. All right. Let's look at that one again. Basically saying, all right, if any item, any particular apple here, or bag, or whatever it is, crosses that boundary, that -5 boundary, destroy all the dropped items. And here's destroy all dropped items, which what it does, it creates a temporary list containing the master, the real list, destroys one by one all the game objects in that temporary list, which is also taking care of removing them from the master list there. So all our list maintenance happens beautifully there. Now, at this point in here, what should also happen, if you are destroying all the items, you're going to destroy a basket as well. Right? But we don't have that set up. Now, also, if you collide with the basket, you should get a point. It shouldn't just... right, so let's see. Well, it's hard to get them in the basket there. Let's see, is anyone going to... It's going to be tough to catch them. All right, we'll make the basket move. So to make the basket move, make the basket move, we're going to need a player. Now the player is what's going to happen. Right? So in our scene, we're going to have somebody, because ultimately this bucket basket really is just a single thing, and the player is going to actually want to carry a couple of these things. So let's go ahead and create an empty thing called the player. All right. So there's the player. The player is at, I'm going to give the player a position, and we'll move the player down to the bottom here. And player should also be at 0. I don't know why it was at -11. All right. Now, I'm going to get a little bit fancy in just a second. All right. So I've just made the player, the bucket, actually. If I put the bucket at 0, 0, the bucket is now at 0, 0 according to the player. If I move the player, the bucket moves with the player. Interesting, right? Is a child of there. So, what if, let's see, well, I want the bucket to be a prefab. So let's create the bucket prefab. Apple tree prefabs. Bucket is going to be a prefab. Okay, fine, it's still in the scene. That's legit. It can be in the scene. I'm going to bring another one and put that in the scene, and another one in the scene. And I'm going to make bucket 1 go here, bucket 2 go here. Right. And the interesting thing at that point, I can just demonstrate that now, okay, yeah, if I move the player around, the buckets move as well. All right. So let's go back to the player, and we'll revisit the buckets in a moment here. So we're going to have SC player behavior, right, for the because we're going to have, we may wind up with multiple player behavior, or player controller, sorry. Nobody's asked any questions in a while. I keep checking every so often. SC player controller, create and add. So I wind up with a player controller there, and we will edit the player controller. Whoops. All right. The main purpose of the player controller is to move the player according to the mouse. So we want to get the mouse position. Vector 3, mouse position, or mouse pause, I like to shorthand. And we say mouse pause equals what? Mouse pause equals, well, let's see. Maybe I'll make this. All we're really interested in is we're going to be converting the mouse, input dot mouse position. We're going to convert that. We need to convert that to world space, right? So we do that through the camera. Camera.main, and we use screen to world point. All right, that's going to give us the screen version of, or excuse me, the world point version of the mouse's position. And the only part I'm really interested in is X. So let's say this, temp, or vector 2 temp equals transform dot position. All right, that is the position of the player. So I'm going to say temp.x equals that. So now temp contains the player's y value and the mouse's x value. So I can come back and say transform.position equals temp. All right, so if we're going to go for elegant, fewest lines of code, that's probably it. Unless you were to do like a, yeah, I think that's the, yeah, that might, I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, let's see if that works before I declare victory. And sometimes there's still some gunk lying around. That's just, all right. It worked. Now you'll notice that baskets or bags, when they hit the baskets, are getting destroyed. How'd that happen? Well, I guess we had that set up in the beginning, didn't we? Right? We said that here in our bag behavior on collision enter 2D, what happened? We destroyed the game object and we set this screen, this text to 1, right? But now clearly we should be earning more than 1 point, right? All right. So let's fix this point system. And we'll say, all right, the player is the thing that's really keeping track of the points, right? So the player should have the points. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a field and property sort of thing, right? So we're going to say private int score, right? So nobody else can refer to score, right? And we're going to have a public int capital score, which is going to be our way of accessing score, right? Right, I need at least one accessor, so we're going to have get and set. All right. Now this is what I want to really be manipulating here, right? So what get is going to do, get is going to just say return score. That's what my get is doing. And set is saying score equals value. And let's not forget our semicolons. So these are the most classic get and set. So set is going to set score to that value. Get is going to return that value. All right. I'm not doing anything with it yet, but now I want to start doing something with it. So in bag behavior, before we did this thing where we just said, okay, game object score, we just manipulated that. We set it to that. So let's go ahead and grab that, and we're going to use that in our player controller in the set function. All right. We're going to actually use that, and let's see, we say using Unity Engine UI to kind of satisfy that. All right. So now any time someone sets this value, it's going to set the value, and then it's going to go ahead and put that value on the screen. That's one way of doing it. This is a fairly elegant way of doing it. Some way in the future, I'm sure it'll come back to haunt me, and then someone will say, that's a terrible thing to do. But for now, I think it's fairly elegant. So now in bag behavior, so now what I need to do is I could, And if I want to carve it in stone that, yes, there's only going to be one player, this is strictly a single player game, I could also say that this is static public. I could do that. This also then would need to be static. All right. Now what this allows me to do, why would I do that? This static, public, static. I'm just saying, okay, there will only ever be one player. So that means that there is only one version of this score. There's only one score in the game. All right. And what that allows me to do is I don't have to use GameObject.find. I can just say sc player controller dot score, use the public property. Okay. So that's how I can just refer to that player class score, because there's only one of them in the game. The only one of them in the project, because it is declared to be, this score is declared to be static. All right, save everything at this point. Once you get into accessors and getters and setters, it'll be a little. I've done it a couple of times where I like wind up crashing Unity because I tried to have accidentally had the accessor accessing itself, and don't do that. Hopefully I didn't do it this time. But you'll see as I catch the bags, the score is increasing. Right? So no matter where I would access that, it would work. Now the one thing that doesn't work is I don't lose a basket yet. All right. Now, all right, crazy thing. Technically, according to the rules of this project, I said that the baskets need to be manipulated in an array. I don't remember if I said they need to be instantiated in that way or not. So, watch this. Let's do something slightly different. So I'm going to go to the basket prefab first off. Prefab, not that one. Apple Tree prefabs. This is what I'm using now. All right. And I'm going to tag this as a basket. All right. Go ahead and tag that as a basket, so that everything in my scene that is, you'll see each one of these now, is tagged basket. Basket, basket, basket. So I'm going to do in the player, those of you watching now, this is an added bonus here. In the player controller, in start, I can do this. I can say GameObject dot find objects with tag. Okay. Basket. Now, this is interesting. Why? Because this creates an array. This returns an array. So, technically now, I'm going to say public GameObject. Forget my syntax now. Let's see. Oh, is that right? There, yes. All right. So, technically here, I could use this place to store these baskets, right? Or I could have just said bucket array now, sorry. Even if I get rid of this. Look at that. I have this bucket array. Let's go to the game, and you'll see in the player, right now, there's no buckets. I come here, hit pause. It has put those buckets in that bucket array. Whoa. 0, 1, 2. It put them in the order that they appear here as well. So the bottom one, the middle one, the top one. Now, if I wanted to, I think I could probably, let's see if I can do this. Now you see that one is the top, that middle, and so on. But actually, no, you know what? I do want it the other way. Leave it the other way. There. All right. So we pause, and we go to the player, and we have bucket 0, bucket 1, bucket 2. And if we were to be able to, if we were to go in here and we said, okay, I could turn these on and off, right? So, what does that do? That is enabling and disabling that game object. So, if I wanted to have lose life, or lose bucket, I would say, and now, okay, up here, I need to keep track of how many buckets I have. Int bucket count equals 3, right? I would say bucket array bucket count minus minus. Well, nope, I'm going to subtract first. Because if it's 3, I want to reference 2. If it's 2, I want to reference 1. If it's 1, I want to reference 0. Dot set active activates or deactivates the game object. All right. Oh, that's a function. There. So if you lose a bucket, it's going to deactivate the topmost bucket. So let's say, let's put some range on here. Bucket count is greater than 1. So as long as you have, well, it's greater than 0. As long as you have a bucket, it's cool to do this. Now, since I set this to static, I could also set this to static. Static lose bucket. Now it's going to complain because these are instance-based. So what do I need to do? I need to say that those are also static. Right? So bag behavior. If I destroy all those dropped items, and I could say, well, SC player. And what is it? Where is it? Destroy. No. Did I not name it? Static void, static public void, lose bucket. Lose bucket. All right. Let's start off. We'll enable that bucket again here. Hit play. Oh, we've lost all our buckets. What happened there? We lost all of our buckets. Who destroyed all the buckets? Weird. Update. Oh, pff. I meant to put it in here. Destroy all dropped items is lose a bucket, not update. That's a terrible reason to lose all the buckets. 303. All right, I'm catching them. I'm scoring. I miss one. Boom. I miss one. Miss one. Oop. And I'm done. So that should be the end of the game. Right? So, let's see. Go through the check things out here. All right. Where'd my... I have to find my... Where's my list of features I need to have here? Scene management. Okay, here we go. There we go. All right. Enemy moves left to right across the top of the screen. Yep, does that. Enemy drops apples at random. Yep, does that. Changes direction. Yep, does that. Randomly changes direction, edges the screen. Yep. Okay. Optional. Player has 3 baskets to catch items. Keep in an array. Did that. Player basket controlled by the mouse. Yep. Player catches an item. Score increases. Yep. Misses an item. Player loses a basket. Yep. Game ends when all 3 baskets are lost. Nope. Use player prefs to save high score. Nope, didn't do that yet. All right. Didn't do it. Not quite there. Almost. Let's go back. Here we go. So, save. Let's put some sounds in. Sounds. All right. So, one thing that should happen, the moment an apple exists or a bag exists, that's a prefab, right? Right. We're going to say, okay, sounds, the bubble sound is going to be the thing that, right, there's the audio source, bubble. Hit play. Should be hearing that. Not hearing it. Why not? Am I using the wrong bag prefab? That could be. I don't know which one I left. Let's do that one. Sounds bubble. There it is. Whoa! There it is. There's a bubble. Turn that volume down. All right. Okay. What else? We wanted to have the swish sound when the basket catches the a bag. So bag behavior, let's see. We could say that you get the swish sound whenever you score. Right? So we could have the the sound in here. We already have a sound on the apple, right? So I'm gonna say the swish sound. Do we have a basket behavior? No, we don't. I'm gonna make the swish sound on the player. Okay. So we're gonna go to the player. Come on, player, scene, player. And the swish sound is not played on awake. And we'll turn it down a little bit. We'll go to the player, and the player going to be every time we score. I'm going to say what are we doing here? Oh, this is static. That's tricky. That's tricky. Since this is static up here, I'm going to be cheating here. It's kind of cheating. I don't know. We're going to find the particular instance because we don't have this game object on, right? Generally, in static things, we don't want to reference. We don't have static game objects, right? We have static things and static methods and so on. So we're going to use this to reference. I don't know. There's probably another way to do that, but okay. I'm trying to be quick. I'll let you do this. All right. So totally legit. That works, right? And the only other thing is we have the lose a basket thing. And I'm going to say, all right, the lose a basket. I would say that really isn't a sound that belongs to the player. It's sort of an environmental sound. So I'm going to go ahead and make a squish sound and just put it in the scene. And it's going to be down here and just down there, squish 1. And we'll just call it squish. And the who needs to see that? The apple or the player, right? Yeah, it's kind of it's like where you get to decide here, because lose bucket, right? Lose bucket is where you get the swish squish sound, right? So technically, oh, squish 1. I thought I didn't rename that. Well, let's rename it squish. Whoops, play on awake. Okay, we'll go to squish, we'll get rid of play on awake. All right, so now we got sounds for everything. We've got the 3 sounds. Drop sound, catch sound, squish sound. Let's tackle the high score, and then we'll pretty much be done. Is it 3:30 yet? Nope, not even 3:30 yet. Wow. Okay. So, high score. We have the canvas, we have a score, and we want a high score. right? Score, high score. So we're going to move score up. And we'll put them both kind of over a bit here. All right, save that. And what's going to happen now, our player is keeping track of the score. So that's probably where we're going to take care of this high score as well. So at the start, at the get-go, we're going to say, let's do this. I'm going to say that we'll set the high score. High score, get component to text. Now we need to figure out what it is. We need to figure out what that high score is. So we could say equals player prefs dot get int, and our string is going to be, we'll call it scare score, just because. Keep it different than the other. And we're going to give it a default value of 20. All right, and that's not going to work because that's an integer, toString. All right, so coming in at the start of the game, high score is going to get set to scare score, whatever scare score is set to. And if it's not set, it's going to set to 20. So go over here, and you'll see one of these gets set to 20. All right, so now what we need to do is somehow set the high score whenever it changes. So here is where we're doing this score. That's where we're scoring, and we're changing things. And we could say right in there, right? Now, we don't want to constantly be checking against this toString and so on, right? So it makes sense at this point to say int high score equals, or int high score, right? Keep track of it there. And let's do this. Say high score equals, and let's get the value here, right? At the start of the game, we check, we get the high score, and then we can say high score to string, right? And here, when the score changes, we could say if score greater than high score. Now we have to be careful now. Maybe this should be static as well, right? Because in order to refer to it here, it's got to be static. High score. What should happen? Well, in that case, high score should be set equal to score. Now, if I wanted to be fancy, and I think I did this in one of my examples, I said, okay, this thing I did here with the score accessor getter with the basically the field and properties, you could do the same thing with the high score, right? You could do the exact same thing. That's a possibility. So the question is, like, how often are you setting the high score? Is it set when the game ends? Does it get set here? So one simple version. There'd be other ways to do this. To say, okay, if that is exceeded, it makes sense. Here is where I want to say player prefs, go ahead and set that. Oops. So I like to cut and paste. Set int scare score to high score. Right? So if you've exceeded the high score, you want to save it. You want to set the high score to that and save it. And you also want to update the text on the screen. Right? And actually, you even want to do this. You want to say, you know what? I set the high score, but I also want to set score to 0. Right? And let's save everything just in case. Again, the moment you start working inside of setters and getters and accessors, you gotta be careful just in case. So I gotta get it to 20. All right. All right. That worked. Let's play the game again. 25 is the new high score. Okay, so you saw how it saved it. Now, if you wanted to reset it, you'd have to specifically set something aside as a some kind of way of resetting the high score if you wanted. You have do it in another scene, have some kind of maintenance check, and that sort of thing. So, all right. So let's see. Let's go back. Let's check one more time. Not there. There. All right. Let's even present that one. Player press set and load, save and load the high score. Game ends when all 3 baskets are lost. I'm going to leave that up to you to do the moment that get component or once your bucket count drops all the way back to 0, you can then say, oh, you lost. All right, but this is the basics. This is the basics. If you want, I want to see this turned in this week. Be better than this. But this certainly is the basics. Anyone still here? Did I leave anything out? See if there's anyone paying attention. Okay, nobody's been asking me questions. And I think I proved my point that you could get this done in less than an hour and 50 minutes. Okay, with room for a lecture and some debugging on somebody else's. So it's in 2 parts. We're going to do similarly, so we'll have studio time on Thursday as well. So again, if you have an exact copy of this, figure it's probably an 85. If you are, certainly commenting it, explaining it, integrating it, get everything worked correctly, laid out, integrated with the other game, and that's something we can go, just get the basics, get the 85 this week, and that's fine. And it's not going to be, I'm not going to make the 85 a final sort of thing, if you need to, but get it to this point. If you're still having difficulty, we'll have to, we'll take it from there. But okay, hopefully that'll make everybody's life a little less stressful for the week. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and sign off. All set.